Welcome to Season 4 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hello and welcome to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 160, Season 4, episode 36. We've got a great episode for you today as we roll into the end of Battle for the South. Dark Days of Denver, as I mentioned last week, is at the editor. You can look forward to a pre-purchase date or where you can sign up to get that book ahead of time, get signed up to get that book as soon as it comes out, which is going to happen, I'm thinking, like the second week of September. But go ahead and look for that pre-release date coming out soon as I can get my head on straight and make sure all my ducks are in a row. Because as the new book rolls out, we roll into the new podcast season. So I have a lot of projects that all kind of pile up on each other. And so that's a lot of work to get through. But as soon as I get through all that work, then we're set up for the season and we can just roll with the story. And let me tell you, it is fantastic story. I love it. Love where the books are going. And, it's just getting a little bit darker, so we can look forward to that. I want to give a shout out to my Patreon members and especially Jim. He headed on over there and became my newest Patreon subscriber, and he got access to all of the goodies that's over on my website that I have for Changing Earth podcast supporters. And so I got all kinds of extra audio over there. I've got resources to help you get prepared. I've got the Las Vegas years that I've been working on. I'm going to get back to that project soon, but I've been just having a ball with my news stories, so I'm a little bit tied up there still. But thank you very much for becoming my latest Patreon supporter. Really, really appreciate the support. I can use all the support I can get right now, guys. So if you head on over to www.patreon.com/Changing Earth, you can go ahead and become a Changing Earth supporter and help keep our show on the air, help keep this podcast going. So every bit really helps. And, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all that you guys are doing to help support me in my efforts to educate and entertain you. Let's see, what else are we doing? We're working on the chicken farm. We've been building coops like crazy. I'm getting super duper strong. We've just been, pounding T-posts and doing fences and building coops. And I'm also learning how to be a construction worker now at this point, with all the building that I'm doing and everything. So that's a lot of fun, keeping us busy. We got new chicks. We're always moving chicks across the property now. And so they have a few months before they'll start laying. But we already have our layers working right now, so it's just going to be more and more and more production. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we'll have to see how that adventure keeps going, because it's been a lot of work in. And so now we're just got to let those chicks grow up and see what we can do with them. I've also been training my brains out, obviously, because that's what I love to do. So I've been continuing with my Taekwondo training. I'm going to have a midterm test coming up here next week. I've been continuing on with my jiu-jitsu training, which is always a work in progress. I really love it. I love learning the new information, but it's really challenging for me and really, gets that adrenaline rush that I haven't felt. I've been comfortable on my feet for a long time. And so to feel that feeling in your body of just high intensity freak outedness is, it's good. Because if that happens to you in a real life scenario, you need to know what to do with that energy. So I'm working on calming that down and trying to learn the moves so I can actually do something in there. So we'll see how that goes. I also want to remind you that in September 22nd and 23rd, I will be out at the Self-Reliance Expo with my husband, Brock. And we're going to have all the books out there. I'll have the new book out there, and it's going to be a blast. So I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot of fans out there, doing some book signing. I'm also appearing on the survival panel of experts. So if you wanted to come on out and meet me, get to know a little bit more about me and who I am, I will be at the Self-Reliance Expo September 22nd and 23rd. So you can go on over there, www.selfrelianceexpo.com, and get your tickets today. I think they might still be discounted for a little bit, but you need to jump on that ball and get it rolling. And can't wait to see you in Denver. So that's exciting stuff. This week on the podcast, I have James Yeager back with us, and always a pleasure to interview James. He's definitely a character, and I always have fun with him. But we are talking about private defense contracting today, and I really wanted to cover this topic because in my story, I create this whole mercenary force. And, a lot of people have problems with the mercenary name. There are actual mercenaries out there, and then there's these private defense contractors. So the force in my book is made up of these companies that used to comprise the self-defense, or I always want to say it that way, the private defense contractors, which is actually a really big force in our world if you were to put them all together. So we're going to explore who these guys are, what they do, things like that. So I'll have more to talk to you about that when we go into the break after the story. But it's really interesting topic, and it's good to know what's existing in your world right now. So last week on the story, Erica's team arrived in Vegas, and we followed Erica on her journey through Vegas and what she was doing. This week, we're going to go over and see how Vince is doing in Vegas and follow his story through Vegas. So a little bit of a twist at the end, how I wrote this. I'm really enjoying this type of writing style where I can go back and forth between characters so I can create, a total picture. And so many of my characters have grown into these people that everybody wants to know, well, what's happening to this character and what's happening to that character? So, they've really grown to that point where everybody wants to know what's going on. So I enjoy writing that way. And obviously you guys are enjoying the content. So today we're flipping over to Vince's story and we're going to see what he's up to. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into chapter 36 of Battle for the South. Chapter 36. Vince watched Erica leave with Bennett and Dex. He quickly turned his mind to the garden warehouse. Alex and Staff Sergeant White would hold their position while he and Star went to the garden control room. They entered a central greenhouse and approached the large room inside. Vince found the door unlocked when he turned the knob. Opening the door, he was snagged into the arms of a man waiting inside. He put Vince in a headlock, and Vince frantically reached to shoot his rifle backwards. "Wait," Star stressed. "Greg, is that you?" "Star," he replied, and let Vince go. "Vince! Buddy! Am I glad to see you!" They embraced in a giant bear hug, and the rest of the family emerged from their hiding spaces. Penny was there, holding Carmen. Mitchell and Jen were there with Crystal, and Roxy emerged as well. There were hugs all around. "Where's Erica?" Penny wondered. "She's with Bennett and Dex, headed to get her mom and the Mercs out of the prison," Vince explained quickly, checking the controls. "It's dialed in, Vince. What do you think I've been doing here?" Greg assured him. "Vince," Penny got his attention. "Nancy's not in the prison. Tweed has her." Vince froze for a moment, his mind processing. The door swung open and Staff Sergeant White entered, coming to check on them. "Erica's going to freak. She'll go to Tweed," Vince said, thinking out loud. "They're going to trigger the alarm. This place will be swarming by then," Star commented on his thoughts. "We have to get there before the alarm sounds," Vince concluded. "Get where?" Staff Sergeant White wondered. "To Matthew Tweed in the Luxor," Vince informed him. "Now hold on, Vince. I'm the senior officer here, and our top priority is to secure these gardens," Staff Sergeant White declared. "Sebastian, I'm sorry, but I know my wife. I know what she'll try to do, and I can't let her die," Vince assured him. "You're under orders, Vince," White fought back. "But I'm not a merc," he said flatly. "Greg knows this system better than I do at this point. Jen and Mitchell are both capable fighters. I'll stay, Dad," Star concluded. "I'll help the incoming refugees organize to load on the train with Alex." "Then with your permission, I'd like to go with Vince, sir," Jensen declared. Staff Sergeant White threw his hands in the air. "Just go! Get her and get back here," he said, frustrated. The dark of night shrouded them as they slunk along. The landowners slept peacefully, unaware of the danger already creeping along their streets. They were almost to the Luxor when the alarm sounded. The compound lit up like a Christmas tree. Vince and Jensen waited in a dark corner with their eyes on the door of the Luxor. The lights turned on in the upper floors and guards moved everywhere. Remembering the hated refugee entrance, Vince led Jensen around to the other side of the building. There was one guard stationed by the door, and a man could be seen inside. His legs looked shackled together as he scooted around the room with a broom, cleaning the floor. "Let's move," Jensen whispered to Vince. Vince strolled up to the guard while Jensen crept around behind him. "Hello, nice night," Vince said casually. "Hold it right there," the guard said, but it was too late. A knife slid through his throat. Blood splurted out at Vince as the man groped at his neck and fell to the ground. Then there was a click behind Vince's head, and Vince felt the hard steel of a gun. "Now don't you move a muscle, either of you, or he's dead," the man said. To Vince's surprise, the gun left his head and the man fell forward into him, sputtering for air. Vince spun around and saw the guard with half of a broomstick protruding out of his back. "Well, ain't you a sight for sore eyes?" a voice that Vince recognized immediately declared. "Now we's even, sir." "Clint, what in the hell are you doing here?" Vince asked, scurrying inside with Jensen. They shut the door behind them. "I's headed for Texas after my run-in with y'all, but the damn feds caught up to me. I needed supplies," Clint explained. "Ain't you glad you didn't kill me?" Vince laughed at the irony. He had wanted to kill this man a long time ago. This man and his gang of thugs had got the drop on an exhausted Erica and Star. They had visions of doing horrible things to Vince's wife and daughter. Vince and Dex interrupted their plans, killing all of them except Clint. After Clint showed them a safe way north, Vince had listened to Erica and let him go. "I guess so," Vince replied. "I always thought Erica had been wrong to let you go. I guess she wasn't." "I see you're still getting use out of my cloak," Clint commented, angry it had been taken from him. "We sure are. But Clint, I need you to focus. How many more guards will be between here and Tweed's office?" Vince asked. "Hell if I know. I ain't never been in enough trouble to get sent up there," Clint replied. "That's where we're headed," Vince declared. "Well, y'all are on your own," Clint commented. Vince and Jensen entered the shower room of the refugee prep area. "What is all this, Vince?" Jensen whispered in wonder. "They make sure all the refugees are cleaned up before they are displayed to the landowners for adoption," Vince stated. Jensen shook his head in disgust. They entered the waiting room on the other side of the showers. There was noise on the other side of the wall, but the room was empty. Vince pointed left. "That door takes you back to the main area of the Luxor. That one," he pointed right, "will take us to the adoption rooms." They went through and ran down the hallway to another heavy wooden door with stairs inside. Gigantic windows revealed the chaos on the streets as they climbed. The fire line between the landowners and refugee areas had grown and extended out far into the distance. Finally, they stepped onto the landing in front of the door that would take them to the hallway where Matthew's office was located. Vince took a deep breath. "This is it," he told Jensen. They slowly opened the door. Vince went first and was met with 2 guns pointed at him. Knowing Jensen was behind him, he jumped and rolled, shooting the man behind the door while Jensen took the man on the other side. They heard a door slam. Vince and Jensen approached the door and opened it quickly. "Just hold it right there," Matthew Tweed said as they entered. "How nice of you to join us, Vince. It's been a while." Matthew Tweed stood between 2 guards with guns pointed at them, his chubby finger grasping the trigger of another gun that was pointed at Nancy's head. "Get on your fucking knees, Vince, or I'll kill her," he lashed out suddenly. "Your dark friend, too." They complied with Matthew's orders, and the 2 guards came and took their weapons. "There, that's better. I wasn't expecting you, Vince. Where is that whore of a wife of yours?" He spat at Vince, always keeping his gun on Nancy. Nancy was white with fear. Her eyes begged for Vince to help her. "Not talking? Show him what happens when refugee scum don't do as they're told, Captain," Tweed hissed. "With pleasure, sir," the captain answered. He was a horrifically large man with a missing tooth and scars lining the left side of his face. For someone of his size, he moved fluidly and stood over Vince. As Vince looked up, the captain smashed his gun into Vince's mouth. Vince slumped over to the side and spit blood and a tooth on the floor. The captain smirked, showing off his missing tooth. "Now let's try this again," Matthew said calmly. "Where is that bitch-ass whore of a wife of yours? If you're here, she's here. Where is she, Vince?" he raged. Vince said nothing, and Matthew indicated for the captain to continue the assault. He smashed Vince hard across his head with his gun. Vince fell to the floor, his head bleeding. The captain looked to Matthew, and Matthew gave a sign to continue. The captain put the gun down on Matthew's desk and punched him again and again. "I know where she is," Jensen announced, watching the captain wind up for a strike that would have smashed Vince's skull into the floor.
He wants to talk, Tweed commented. See, Nancy, people are always willing to be helpful. You just have to ask the right way. You pig, Nancy squeaked out. Wait until you see what I'm going to do to your daughter. Maybe I'll let you watch, he said, licking her ear. Vince heard Matthew's words through the fog clouding his head. He willed himself to stay conscious. He had to end this. So, Mr. Black, where is she? Tweed demanded. The captain had now turned in Jensen's direction. Jensen had only wanted to divert attention away from Vince. He didn't have an answer. She's flying overhead right now on a purple Pegasus, he replied. What? You think this is a game? Matthew thundered. Captain, he ordered. The captain swooped his gun up off the deck and smacked Jensen across his skull with it. He holstered the sidearm and beat Jensen until his hands bled. Don't kill them. Get them back up, Tweed shouted. The captain backed off, and the other soldier helped him to prop the men back onto their knees in front of Tweed. Tweed had loosened his grip on Nancy, feeling more confident with the men's weakened condition. Vince, can you hear me? Matthew asked, standing in front of him with Nancy. I will kill her. I have you now. So where is Erica? Tweed asked, cocking his gun. Vince realized this might be his only chance. He summoned all his courage and strength. Shooting his body out, he kicked out Matthew's knee and grabbed the captain's legs. Jensen took the cue and launched at the other man, taking a shot to the arm as he struggled with the man for possession of the weapon. The captain tried to pull his gun, but dropped it as he fell. Vince grabbed it, shooting him in the leg. Cursing, the captain wrestled Vince for it. Vince pulled the trigger again, and a bullet ripped through the captain's chin from the gun that was wedged between them. Matthew, seeing the progression of the fight, threw the weight of his obese body on top of Vince, pinning the weapon under him. He looked to the other soldier for help, but he was still locked in combat with Jensen. Nancy, thinking fast, grabbed Matthew's letter opener off his deck. She made a shrill crying sound as she launched through the air, gripping Matthew's body with her legs and stabbing the letter opener into the back of his neck. The door flew open and slammed into the man Jensen was wrestling. Jensen snatched the weapon from the man and shot him as Bennett, Erica, and Dexter stood in awe of the violent scene in the room. Mom? Erica asked as the woman coated in blood looked towards her. Mom! Oh my God, are you guys okay? She yelled as she approached and saw Vince's body under Matthew's with the corpse of a soldier next to him. His swollen eye looked up at her. She exhaled deeply. He was alive.
Well, it's quite the scene as Erica opens the door and finds Vince there with Nancy. You know, I hemmed and hawed over how I should, solve the Matthew Tweed problem in the end. And should it be Erica doing like a grand scale, attack or whatever? And you know what I decided was I've always tried to make my books very realistic and keep Erica very grounded as a character so that women could relate to her and understand that, with just a little bit of training and just a little bit of effort, you too can be able to defend yourself. You can be able to fight, So I wanted to keep Erica as that character that is not always the one saving the day. And that's why I decided to write it the way I did. And I thought it was super cute how, Nancy was the one to finally give him the killer blow there. So really fun part of the story. I hope you enjoyed that. Today I have James Yeager back on the show. And I wanted to have him on because, like I mentioned in the intro, the mercenary group in my book is composed of these companies that used to fulfill a role that exists in today's society known as private defense contracting. Combined, this force is the third largest force in the world. So if you combine all of these companies together, they actually form an army that's the third largest in the world. So I really wanted to explore this because a lot of people call them mercenaries, and there are actual mercenaries out there, as James will tell us in the interview. But these guys are doing a job that's really necessary, and a lot of people don't understand that they are out there fighting the good fight too. And so James has a lot to say about this, and so I can't wait to get into it. So let me tell you where when I started researching James Yeager, he suggested that I read his book. And so I picked up his book, and I'm an odd bird, I guess, because I really enjoy learning tactical information, just how battles go, and preparedness items that you would need to know for when you're out there. And so I've noticed that in the survival community, when we talk about go bags and we talk about EDC kits and stuff like that, we never really talk too much about weapons. And so what I found in James's book was nothing about tactical information. It is a book that is a primer for people who are going into the private defense contracting position. And it's what you need to know ahead of time, what you need to expect, how to apply to companies, how to background check them. So it's a lot of information that, you know, for me, who's somebody who's not interested in private defense contracting positions, you know, I was just reading it just because I was interested in what these people do on a daily basis. However, inside of his book, I found lists that James has put together for people that are going overseas and going to be in these high-risk situations. My brain immediately went to long-term survival situation. This is what we need to be carrying to be prepared. You want to have a ballistic vest. You want to have a weapon. You want to have, and then it goes all the way down to basics. Like one of the things that I picked out the most was a cavity filling, a temporary cavity fill product that they have. I didn't know it existed, but why wouldn't you want that in your go bag, you know? So his lists are great. We're going to touch on them a little bit, but I highly recommend you go out and pick up his book. And I'm not saying that you're going to become a private defense contractor by any means, but the list that he has inside of there and the advice that he has for, like, when you're cooking, you don't want to use contaminated water, you know, so you need to make sure that whoever's the chef preparing it knows that you don't want the contaminated water, right? So these are all things you have to think about in a long-term situation. That's why I really, really was excited to do this interview with him. So let me go ahead and introduce James. James Yeager is the MF CEO of Tactical Response. He's the author of High Risk Civilian Contracting. James Yeager, who owns Tactical Response, was a law enforcement officer with a career spanning undercover, patrol, canine, and SWAT assignments. He has also been a security contractor in Iraq, protecting the Iraqi Election Commission before, during, and after Iraq's first election. He started Tactical Response in 1996, and in that time has trained over 66,000 people in North, Central, and South America, as well as Europe. If you would like to find out more about James or get into any of his classes, which I highly recommend, you can do that at www.tacticalresponse.com. That's www.tacticalresponse.com. So let's go ahead and welcome James to the show. Today, I am back with James Yeager. Super excited to have James back on the show. So thank you so much, James, for coming back on. It's
absolutely. No, absolutely. Glad to do it.
So I wanted you to go ahead and introduce yourself for people that don't know who you are. And then I want you to talk a little bit about your book, because that is where we're headed today, is down the conversation of the book you wrote.
If they don't know who I am and they are not motivated enough to find out, they don't deserve to know who I am. But I wrote a book about civilian contracting. I was a police officer. I got an opportunity to go over to Iraq in 2004, and it was like I was looking for information about doing the job, and it did not exist. And so I wrote this book about civilian contracting, and a lot of people, I'm quick to tell them, it's not about the job. It's about everything but the job, like traveling and, you know, immunizations and wills and lawyers and taxes and, you know, all the stuff that nobody told me I should know.
Right.
And so I wrote the book thinking, okay, I just threw it together, and I thought, okay, somebody will write some definitive work on this, but I'll put this out there until somebody does that, and nobody did. So it's like, if I knew it was going to like stick around this long, I probably would have tried harder.
Right, exactly. So the title is Private Self-Defense Contracting, right? Isn't it?
High risk civilian contracting. High risk civilian contracting, working in a war-torn world.
Yeah. So I got a hold of your book, and honestly, I just poured through it in like a couple hours because from a preparedness point of view, you have so many great lists in there. You have so much great advice, and then I could just apply it to like if it was a long-term grid down situation instead of a third world country situation. And so I really, really found it valuable. But I want to talk first. In my books, I have created what I call the mercenary army. And so a lot of times, there's a stigmatism against what people understand as a mercenary. So I wanted to talk to you about it just so we could clear the air because, I've met a lot of great guys that are in civilian contracting. They're patriots. They're wonderful people. And I do not paint the mercenary army as like an evil body. They're actually the good guys in my book. So I just wanted to explain like who these people are and what you guys are doing.
Well, there is a difference, in my opinion, between a mercenary, that's a real thing with a real definition, and a civilian contractor. The easiest way for me to explain to anybody what the difference is that a mercenary kills people for money.
Right.
A contractor would not kill anybody for money that he wouldn't kill for free anyway.
Right. True. Right. Going after bad guys,
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of the soldiers I worked with and me as a police officer, I saw it as an extension to my duty to my country, not as exactly. I'm going over there to shoot people. What I did was far more along the lines of being a police officer than it was a contract killer. But mercenaryism is a real thing. It has a real history. The second oldest profession in the world is mercenaryism. So yeah. It's a real thing. That's not what I was.
And so why did we experience, like in our country, the uptick of the popularity of utilizing the civilian contractors rather than our military doing it?
It's really easy. There's two reasons. Money, it's cheaper to have contractors. And number two, when the bodies start coming home, they don't come home with flags draped over them, and the president doesn't have to tick them off on his list. They're on somebody else's list.
Right. Wow. I didn't think about it that way.
Oh, it's politically safer. Yeah. 100 contractors could get killed and not even make the news. One soldier gets killed, it makes the news.
It's true. Wow. Okay, that's enlightening because I always thought about it as the point of view of like they didn't want to go and do the military wasn't didn't want to go and do the protectionary type jobs that you do, the micro jobs, right?
There are things like personal security and stuff like that the Army doesn't do, and so there was some of that, but in the big picture, it was cheaper. It's more politically soft.
Yeah, advantageous. Yeah, excellent. So if somebody was looking for employment in this field, what kind of advice would you give them for landing that job?
I don't do that.
No advice for that? So what kind of background would you need to even get considered?
It doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to be aloof. Yeah. There's contracts out there that are very picky that you'd have to have been a tier 1 SEAL or Delta Force to get, and then there are contracts out there that if you were a bouncer at a bar you could get, but not everybody should be doing that job, and I would be hesitant to tell somebody, no matter what their background was, whether or not they had a martial background like police or military, or they didn't, whether they could or could not get a job. And a lot of people, like I have classes to prepare people for civilian contracting, and they think at the end of it, I'm very clear about it, they think at the end of it that I'm going to get them a job somewhere, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see why that would be your opinion on it.
I would give folks one opinion. If you're doing it for the money, get out now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do it for the cause, right?
Well, I tell people all the time, don't trade a career for a job, because there were guys that were like trying to get out of the Army, trying to do the math real quick on how much a contractor was making, and if you do the math on a soldier, about like his benefits and being able to go to college and all of those things, and you add it all up, what if a soldier kind of took advantage of everything, he was making the same amount of money as a contractor.
Okay, yep, because you have to figure in the benefits and all that.
Yeah.
Yep. Every employment's that way. Oh yeah, you're making 40 grand cash, or you're making 30 grand with all your health care and all your paid days off and stuff like that.
Like I got hearing damage and bomb fragments in my neck, and the VA doesn't pay for that.
Right. Yeah, that I see. That's why it is more. I never really dug into the political aspect of that side, so that's kind of enlightening. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found just most fascinating about your book was gear lists, which I know is kind of goofy. I guess I'm a goofy gal.
I know.
Yeah, as far as like people talk about what you should have ready for your go bag, or if it was a grid down, you were bugging out forever, what you should have. And nobody ever talks really about certain weaponry you might want to have with you, certain protection items you might want to have with you. And so I just found that fascinating to be able to see that side of it rather than just, I have my MREs and my life straw, right? So I was like, this is the list we need to be looking at.
Well, that's actually how the book started, was my friends that were coming over, because I was the guy they knew. So they're asking me, what do I need to do to get ready? So I just started making the list. Like, this is personal gear you should have. This is tactical gear you should have. Like how many pairs of socks do you take, right, to be a civilian contractor? Yeah. Like just boring stuff like that. So that's what started all of it, was like, what immunization should I have before I come over? Just a list of things to get ready, prepare for, and and all that. That's what started it. And then the text in the book just connects all the gear lists together.
Yeah, it really was a great list. And I was like, this is what we need as far as like really being prepared to defend ourselves and take care of ourselves on the long term. So when you're doing like a civilian contracting job, are there times when you're just out for like, a couple weeks and you're not touching back in, things like that?
Every contract is different. Right. And so civilian contractors protect nouns, people, places, things. And so if you're protecting a thing, you're there usually. Right. At the thing. People move around, so you have to follow your clients or whatever the case may be. And then a place/thing could be like an event or something where you might have to travel to a event to protect that. So it's such a, and that's on the protection side of it. There's also civilian contracting that goes on the direct action side of the house, like doing like sneaky shit and shooting people. And that's not my world, and I don't know what those guys do, but I know that world exists.
Okay. So back to the list. If you had to pick like the top 5 things off of that list, you were leaving your house, it was grid down, my house just burned down in fire, I can grab 5 things and go to survive for long term, what would those top 5 be?
A rifle, night vision, I'd make sure I had good boots, something to carry water in, and a backpack.
Okay, yeah, you can gear it up. Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. It's like, what would James take? Top 5, like all you can.
Well, I mean, if you narrowed me down to one thing, it might be night vision.
Really?
Yeah.
Where do you think you can buy like the best quality at the best price?
Quality, and you can't get cheap and quality.
Yep, you can't. You can't.
No.
I've looked at it.
But TNVC.com, Tactical Night Vision Company, TNVC is where I buy my stuff.
Okay, TNVC. All right, excellent. Yeah, I know, because I've looked at it before, and I'm like, the budget's not allowing for that. Hopefully things are going to be working out in the future.
But here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. It's not your budget that's the problem. It's your priority that's the problem.
Fair
and
enough.
If you came out here and me and you played with night vision for a couple hours at night, you'd be like, holy shit, I got to get some night vision.
Right.
Like
yeah.
your priorities would change
real quick. Yeah, I can imagine. just a little bit of playing that I've done with airsoft and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, as soon as it gets dark, the guys that are really good are just done dead in the water. And whoever can see best at night kind of triumphs.
Yep.
So, yeah, and if that's number one on your list, then yeah, that's definitely something to take.
And the thing for me is, if it's a non-permissive environment, like it's like people are, bad things are going on, I'm going to find somewhere to hide and sleep all day long while people are moving around, and I'm going to move at night, and so.
Yeah, good call. So when you have a good night vision set like that, it doesn't run on like a battery power? Is that something you'd have to carry like solar charger to recharge them and things like that, or how do they?
Yeah, they typically run on AA or CR123s.
Okay.
And a full battery will last about 40 hours.
Okay, that's pretty good longevity on it. So you just have to make sure you have a solar charger for charging that thing back up, or else you're same as everybody else. SOL, right? Okay, so one of the things that you also focused on was just driving and the different tactical things that happen from a vehicle. So I found that pretty interesting because I'm thinking about, well, if everybody's bugging out or whatever and they're going out in their vehicles, then so why is that so important? I mean,
well, you can carry more stuff in a vehicle and you can travel faster, further, and all that. But there are obviously targets,
How much does it change the game when you're actually shooting from a vehicle?
Oh, you can't hit shit. That's why you need belt-fed weapons to kind of and hose around that area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, anybody that says they can hit 50% of the time out of a vehicle is probably fucking lying.
You're full of it, man. Yeah. I found that interesting though. And like, I've trained under another survival instructor, and one of his big things was like learning how to drive properly, learning how to do like rapid, U-turns and things like that to make sure you can move the vehicle well, which, everybody gets, but I don't think anybody really takes the time to do.
Yeah. They think they can do it already. So.
Yeah. So what about firearms training? I know we kind of went through this in my last interview, but I want to just hammer it home because I don't think enough people are up and moving with their weapons. So, where do they begin?
Well, I mean, and this applies to any of your life-saving stuff like driving or anything. You don't have to be like the world's greatest expert on it, but you need a survival level of proficiency. Mm-hmm. And you need to, under stress, be able to get it out, get it in front of you, see the sights, press the trigger. And it's just like, it's like I know a whole bunch of people that are not firemen that have fire extinguishers in their home. They can figure out, pull the pin, squirt the fire. Okay. Well, you need at least that level. And it sounds like it's not very much, but keep in mind, I'm saying in a fight, you need to be able to get it out, pull the pin, squirt the problem. And so, again, you don't have to be a world champion, but like people think the marksmanship part, lining up the sights and hitting the target is what matters, but it's actually the weapon handling. It's all the other stuff that goes along with that usually wins or loses gunfights.
How would you increase like the stress level if you're just like out on the range, I'm out my driveway shooting? How would you increase the stress level of like me when I'm trying to just hit a target?
Turn a camera on.
Fair enough.
just tell yourself, I'm going to go practice. I'm going to turn this camera on, and no matter what happens, I'm putting that on.
I'm putting it on there. Oh yeah, that would be great. That's
but
true.
A lot of people say, well, I run or do push-ups to induce stress. Physical stress is not what the same stress, adrenal stress is not the same thing. So all you are is getting tired before you shoot. That is not the same thing.
Yeah, it's
not
true.
the same thing. No, to actually train in an adrenalized state usually takes surprise of some sort. Kind of like the Pink Panther coming home and Kato attacking him.
Right.
Like, not now, Kato. Like that. Like it usually takes something like, like force on force training is the best as far as that goes. I mean, even the military recognizes that. They spend a ton of money on it.
Yeah. So then the airsoft would be a great way to do that because you're increasing the amount of it.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I said force on force. I didn't say airsoft.
yeah, because I've been just thinking about it because at martial arts, we always either spar, to increase it. My instructor can definitely increase my adrenal stress pretty fast.
Right.
And yeah, just by him watching me. And then, so I'm like, how would you really apply that to a firearm? What are you going to do?
It's force on force. It's having somebody having just like your instructor having an aggressor that it's also thinking, breathing human being that's trying to maneuver against you. Yeah, that'll do it.
Okay. Yeah, because that's definitely an area that needs to be improved. I'm like, how do you increase that stress level? Even the camera's a great idea, though. It's like stepping on the scale.
Yeah, turn on, yeah, turn on live stream. Just live stream your practice.
Oh, yeah, that'll be great. Oh, and way to suggest that to all my listeners, too, because now they're going to be like, you got to do it. You got to do it. Oh, man. All right, so one of your other lists, because obviously I'm a list gal, so one of your other lists was your personal medical kit. And there's one item that I really picked off of this one that I was like, oh my gosh, that's something that I didn't even know existed, and I want it. But I want to ask you first, what are your top 5 items that you would grab off that list?
Well, tourniquet number 1. Like, everybody should be carrying a tourniquet right now. Like, no matter who you are, no matter what your age is, like, you should be carrying a tourniquet. You should know how to use it. You should practice using them. Like, you should know how to use a tourniquet. So if there's one thing, it's a tourniquet. After that, if we look at the top 3 things that kill people in a battlefield type environment, it's going to be tension pneumothorax, blood loss, and airway. So a chest needle, compression bandage, some gauze, and the nasal airway would be the 5 things that I carried,
Okay.
plus the tourniquet.
Wow, that's an intense list right there. I got homework to do. I got some serious homework to do. Yeah, I was thinking like the sucking chest wound, that's like biggie. But yeah, the tourniquet. But I mean, how practical is it to be able to make a makeshift tourniquet? Is that easy?
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And I like all the people that have never done it that say they can make one out of a belt. I dare you to try it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to get in with some of my medic friends, be like, okay, I need a brain update here. Cause
most likely your medic friends don't know shit about tourniquets. Stateside medics don't use them. They don't know about them. Find an Army medic, somebody that was like a combat medic. They'll tell you how to put a damn tourniquet on.
All right. Yeah, I know a few of those too as well. So I'll do that. Like I say, I've been slacking on my medical knowledge. I've been just training right now. So
I promise, okay. Just if nothing else, just get really, really good with a tourniquet. That's the one thing that you can do the most with. Because think about it, they only go 4 places: high in your armpits or high on your legs, all the way up in the pelvic girdle. They only go 4 places. You don't put tourniquets on people's neck. That doesn't work. So, so blood loss from the extremities is a killer. Like it kills people all the time, and it's something you can fix just like that with a tourniquet. Now, the other things in the chest, maybe it's tension pneumothorax, maybe it's tension hemothorax. We don't know, but we can't fix a lot of that stuff out in the field. But a tourniquet, like look at the Boston bombing. There are people that died because they didn't have tourniquets, and people that were saved because of tourniquets. And you can get like the little H&H tourniquets that are this big, smaller than a pack of cigarettes that you can carry all the time. There are all kinds of little tourniquets you can carry.
Yeah, that's got to go in the EDC kit then. That's right there.
That should be on your person.
Yep.
Just like your gun. Like you can't. It's a long walk to your EDC kit when you got a gunshot wound.
Right. Fair enough. All right. Well, what type of advice do you have for not only the contractors visiting other countries, but I keyed in on this area because you talk a lot about just all the ways you kind of have to be worried about getting the diarrhea basically when you're on the go, and that can be a killer for a long-term survival situation. So that's why I wanted to just touch base there a little bit as well.
So one thing that should be in your kit is an anti-diarrheal. Like, you should have that in your EDC kit. Like if you're legit, because bad water can.
Yeah, and that's an easy one too. That's Imodium.
Yeah, just Imodium out, just start,
Right.
do it. And, but yeah, that's a big deal. And I just traveled to Africa a couple of months ago. I'm going back, and I didn't get anything bad over there, but when I go, I have like all that stuff with me all the time, like
Yeah.
on my person.
Yeah, absolutely. Cause I've been thinking like, one of the scenes in your book's hilarious, where you're like, you're trying to defend the dude, and then you're, squirting out the other end. I'm like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, that would be a nightmare. Like, yeah, you're not really doing your job there, and it's be the same way in a long-term survival situation. If you can't control yourself, you can't defend yourself, you can't do anything. So
Yeah, if you can't stop, squirting it out one end, you can't stay hydrated. You're not effective. And so the thinking used to be, don't take anything and let the bacteria run its course and then take something. Nope, plug that stuff up right now.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely. I'm that way. Like, I don't, you can't really go to martial arts in white pants if you're having if you're having a stomach problem.
I don't know if you saw Deadpool, but he said that guy should have wore his brown pants today.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. There's like no recovering from that one. So. Okay, so the last question that I have for you regards a lot of times in the survival setting, people talk about the gray man and how you want to be the gray man. And so you talk about, should you have a high profile appearance or a low profile appearance depending on the setting that you're in. So I wanted to talk to you a little about like, if you were in a survival situation, would you want to have that high profile or the low profile?
Well, the thing is that they're both tools that you use when it's appropriate. So like we talked earlier about EDC, I want to have night vision because I want to have the lowest low profile there is. I don't want to be the gray man, and I want to be the dark man, like you don't even know the invisible man.
Right.
So the exact other opposite end of that is if you're going to be visible, then you need to be like a porcupine. You need to look like somebody that they don't want to fuck with.
Right,
and,
exactly.
So
that's why I was thinking, like, do you go like, look, we're the baddest mammer jammers and you don't want to mess with us? Or do you go like just completely underground?
Again, they're both tools.
Yeah.
Use the tool that's appropriate. This is like some Sun Tzu stuff. Like when you are strong, appear weak. When you're weak, appear strong. Like there's so many variables. I couldn't just say use it then or here. But if you can go without being seen, that's always the right answer.
Yeah, I'd agree. Because I'd rather just stay down and make sure my family's safe and alive, and we're out of there and safe and alive. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So, well, that's all I got for you. I wanted to just, your books just was really intriguing to me because, like I say, we're just from a survival point of view, I was like, this is great material. Even though, I don't plan on being a civilian contractor, I just thought it was such wonderful material for the survivalist community. So I really wanted to have you back on.
If things break down, it's going to look a lot like that. There's going to be 2 and 3 car motorcade convoys going out to find supplies and and scavenging if those things are available, and it probably bears some resemblance to a full-scale meltdown for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's like, it's kind of spooky, but like you got to think about like the other side of things too. Everyone's like, oh, make sure. Oh, the one thing that I did love from your list that you didn't mention, because you were like, really, everybody's heard of that, is the cavity resealer stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was such a thing, and I've had caps pop when you're in the cold.
Oh, you can get it at any department store.
Yeah, I did. I picked it up at the pharmacy. Got it in my go bag now. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that one. I was like, done.
That one's a lifesaver if you need it.
Yeah, because I was up in the cold with the cap off, the nerve going. I'm like, geez, I wish I could put something on there if I'd have known about it. I could just grabbed it from CVS. So.
Well, now you know. So.
Well, James, I'd ask you to like wrap up with me and tell people where they can find you, but I'm thinking you're gonna say that if they don't know where to find you, then they don't deserve to find you.
They don't. Like if they're not motivated enough to get off their ass and do a Google search, then I don't want people like that in my life.
Yep, I hear you. So, but thank you so much for coming back on the show, talking about the book. It was a great time, and I just really appreciate it. I know your summer schedule is just hectic, so I was like, I'm catching them at a bad time. But
don't. I'd be glad to come back anytime. Just be patient with me, and so I can get my schedule worked out. But I enjoy doing these things, and you're always pleasant to talk to. So, just if you need me in the future, just consider me yours.
Awesome. I will. I got another book coming out real soon, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks.
Anytime.
All right. Thank you so much, James, for coming on the show. Always my pleasure to host you. Such a great voice to have on the show. You guys can all look forward to that pre-order date for the Dark Days of Denver. That'll be coming up soon. And as soon as I get a little bit further, I'll have more information on that for you. I want to go ahead and thank all of my Patreon supporters. You guys are what makes the show stay on the air and keeps me sitting in this chair and recording all this great information for you. So thank you so much for your efforts to keep the show going. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, head on over to www.patreon.com/changingearth. That's www.patreon.com/changingearth. Don't forget to get your tickets to the Self-Reliance Expo. That's September 22nd and 23rd. I cannot wait to see you there. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Changing Earth podcast. I really appreciate all of my listeners out there and hearing your great feedback all the time. It really brings a smile to my face. So whatever you can do, head on out, shoot me a shout out. Love to hear from you. But until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, and Battle for the South at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.